Hi everyone, it's Kasia from Tarot Map, and this is the third episode in my series Inspired Tarot Map. And today I'm hosting our very well known in tarot community and our famous and lovely and wonderful Chris Ann, Pixiecurio. How do you pronounce this?
Oh, the Instagram, Pixiecurio.
Pixiecurio, yeah, Pixiecurio on Instagram. I'm sure most of you know Chris Ann, but just for the sake of introducing, there she is. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited
I'm
to chat with you. I haven't even told anybody that I'm having you, so this is a surprise for everybody. But you know, I have been actually watching what you've been doing since you published your Sacred Creators Oracle. And I have to disclose for honesty that when you were doing Kickstarter of that Oracle deck, I didn't back it, because when I was looking at it, I was thinking, words, just words? Nah, that's not going to work for me. Sorry, this is just totally, no. I mean, it looks lovely. I'm kind of, you know, I was curious, like, what you doing? Like, just words? No pictures, nothing. This is going to be a weird deck. And then, you know, now I can honestly say after using it since probably at some point, you know, I just got it. And since I have been using it for all this time, for readings, for clients, for myself, this is one of my probably top 5 Oracle decks.
Oh, that's so nice to hear.
So it was a total surprise, but I was so since then, I just kind of watched you. And that's kind of part of my introduction, that I always admire how you break through, you know, that kind of the niche. You always find like the little bit extra of the niche. And this is an Oracle deck. Then you introduce the major arcana of tarot in there very smartly, actually. And then now you're making these 2 new amazing decks. And, you know, I'm like, as we spoke, like I'm a bit biased to Muse Tarot. So we're going to talk about all of this. And I hope, guys, you're going to enjoy it, because this is going to be fun and juicy on all the tarot sides, but also because Chris Ann is doing a lot of business stuff with tarot and with cards and branding. I thought it would be interesting to speak to you about this one as well.
Sure. Yeah. Wherever the conversation goes, wherever your audience feels. I'm so happy that I feel like I love that story, because I was the same. I remember, you know, kind of thinking about how I wanted to do this deck. And I was in that, when I was starting the Sacred Creators Oracle, I was in the same mindset, like, oh, it's just words and these little, you know, sometimes the sacred geometry or just the very simple drawings. And I was like, I don't know, will people, I was really afraid that people wouldn't get it. And then I started working with it more and more, and I was like, this works. It works. It can work. We have all different ways that we can jump off from our intuition. And sometimes all we need are a few words and color. And I find it's really wonderful to pair that, you know, any deck with words, not necessarily mine, with images that you would get from a normal tarot deck or an oracle deck, because then it's just the serendipity and the crossover becomes, it's wonderful, right? Something different and new. So I'm so happy that you were that I was able to share that with you. I feel so honored about that.
Yeah, and actually you're right, it works so well with, because I'm a mixer, I call myself a mixer, you know, I mix a lot of decks together, and your deck just goes with about anything, really, any other deck. It fits so wonderful with so many decks that I love and use for readings. And but even, you know, that kind of sense of, I don't know, from feedback from people that I got from my readings when I used your deck, it's just sometimes just like so spot on and just adds this extra layer. So yeah, it's a wonderful oracle. But can I ask you, just like I ask most of my guests, like about your heritage, like ancestors, and where you're coming from and where you actually live right now?
Yeah, so I'm just north of Toronto. I'm in a place called Blue Mountains. It's just north of Toronto. It's a few hours north of Toronto. It's kind of a small, beautiful, I'm at the bottom of a ski hill. I'm just, you know, I'm big into snowboarding, so I'm really happy. We recently moved here, so I'm really happy where I am right now. I'm so happy to share that, because I'm like, oh, I'm in Blue Mountain. And my heritage. So my heritage is It's funny because we just did our 23andMe with my family. You know, like you put in your DNA and you do your ancestry. And my husband's heritage is so cool, and he's all over the world. And my family, it's like you are 98% boop, from here. We are Scottish and Irish, and so full Celtic heritage. And it is it's amazing to see it on the map, you know, where it's like, even when you put it over to like, we're not, you know, let's just go and say, maybe we made a bunch of mistakes. No, we're still from there.
That's so cool. I really want to do it, but for some reason we don't have it, you know, in Poland. So I will have to probably just search for some. I looked at the state USA ones, but the delivery is so expensive to send your saliva there. I'm like, no, I wait for Europeans, for Europeans brands to catch up with the US now. But it's really interesting.
It is cool as far as like even digging into ancestry and path. And I mean, I grew up with these, like, my grandparents spoke Gaelic, like very old school Celtic, in Canada and Nova Scotia, Cape Breton Island, where there's still a lot of old Celts. And, you know, all of the stories about fairies and the fairy folk and whales and mermaids, that was just a part of my growing up. So that I had that sort of imaginative side because of that. I really think that's based on the stories I heard as a young child. But we found out probably, you know, I'm going to say it was within the last 5 years, that we always thought that we were from one place in Scotland, like always like, oh, we're Highlanders. That was always the thing. And we found out that a large part of our ancestry comes actually from the Isle of Man, which I would love to share this with you, because I'm not, because ancestry and cultural appropriation, there's all sorts of stuff about heritage right now in our community that's so divided and unique and wonderful and lovely. Like there's so much going on with that. And I grew up with a love for runes, the Norse runes. That was my very first divination tool. And I remember thinking, when I found out, I thought they were Celtic. When I first found them, I was like, they're Celtic. Oh my goodness. I found them in my aunt's room and I thought they were Celtic, and they weren't. And I shared this on Instagram at one point, that when I found out I was from Isle of Man, I was like, well, that's kind of cool. And we went and we did some research on Isle of Man. And sure enough, that was like a place where there was Scottish people, there was the British Isles, and it was owned, and it was, I think, Norway until a certain time, and there were runes. There's actually runes.
The Vikings.
There were Vikings there. And so I thought, that makes so much sense, that I had this full draw to this divination art. And I remember being so worried and upset when I found out that they were Celtic, because they didn't feel as much like they were mine. And so I kind of got to reclaim that a little bit, which was really, ancestry is so cool.
Yeah, but it's also, it's also interesting that sometimes you can be, let's say, Celtic, but let's say your ancestors grew up with Slavic people, and it's like they could live there and all the surrounded by that culture and kind of use this culture. So sometimes I think you can't really be very black and white about this cultural appropriation. It just doesn't work this way. And even if you read any scholarly texts and books on this type of thing, they all go, well, you can't really really always with 100% certainty say that, I don't know.
Well, culture and race are two very different things, right? And so I didn't want to take the conversation that way. I'm sorry,
No, but it's really interesting, I think. Yeah. Because also, a lot of, it is a live kind of subject, and a lot of people speak about it. And I think before that, there was so much migration. Everybody was kind of a bit more nomadic and moving, and it's really hard sometimes to and I think when you really feel this strong pull towards something, that also speaks for something. Because when I have done a lot of ancestral work last year, and I worked with Lara Veleda Vesta. She's she's an amazing lady. She's on Instagram as well, actually, which reminds me, maybe I get her an interview as well. But she just makes me realize that, seriously, when we go back and back and back and back with the ancestry, we're part of everything, and it's kind of still in our DNA.
Absolutely. And I should frame what I said there, because I still worked with ruins. And the whole reason I want to share that story is not because I don't think that you can't work with ruins if you don't have that heritage. It's actually that I knew in my system, in my bones, that that was for me. And I didn't know why. And I just was lucky enough,
Yeah.
you know, to have found that little tiny piece of information that made it all click. But if I
Yeah,
hadn't
that's
found that piece of information, if someone didn't do this whole family tree and history and all of that stuff, I never would have known. And
yeah.
so, sometimes we do feel just drawn to certain things, and I think we need to trust that. We need to trust our own intuition. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So with your new decks, because we're all waiting, we're excited. Can you
Mhm.
can you tell, like, actually maybe before we go into the new decks, like, because you're a graphic designer
Yes. Yeah.
from, like, that's your job, because I was wondering, like, how did cards come into your equator, like how did it, were you using tarot before, were you drawn to oracle decks, like how come you kind of focused on this particular, medium in a way?
Sure. Well, I always, like I said, I found runes when I was very young. I was maybe 15 or 16. And shortly after that, I was drawn to, the whole world opens up once you start, right? And so I was drawn to tarot. I come from a family that I wasn't allowed to have tarot. And so my first deck was actually, I was in grade 11, I think, so 16. And I would have been, I found a guidebook and we were photocopying the guidebook. Like it was an old Rider-Waite-Smith guidebook in the library so that I could have a deck of cards because I wasn't allowed to buy cards. Um, so I guess I was into tarot at a young age, but it was always something that was a hobby for me. And, I did a whole bunch of, your life happens, and I went to university and opened a design business. And then just, you get to a point sometimes where, for me anyways, I felt like I just all of a sudden knew that the only thing that would really make me happy would be to fully be myself in the world, fully express this, because I was really in the spiritual closet for a long time. Um, in the 90s and the early 2000s, it was a different world.
Yeah.
It was just, yeah, I mean, it wasn't as mainstream. It was much more difficult. And so I had my circle and my small group, and I guess it just came to a point where it was like I really wanted to do this. And I had started doing an oracle deck and a tarot deck. Like I cannot tell you how many times I've started. I have like maybe 10 different times I started tarot over the last 15 years. I'm going to do a deck and I get one image done or I get two images done. And then I realize this is a really big project. It's a lot of work because after, the energy of doing one or two cards and you're like, how can I finish? It's too much. So
And then you just do it two in one go. We get there. So
but I'm also at a place in my life now where I've had a business for, I've been an entrepreneur for long enough, and I had this shift happen in my business where I kind of set it up for the last few years to have the time to be able to do this. So it's kind of, I decided to finally dedicate the time to doing this thing that I've wanted to do for at least 15 years. It was like, I'm doing it. And the Sacred Creators Oracle didn't take as long to create because it was words and just design. There was no illustration. It's not that it's not art, but it's not this, it's more design. I'm a designer more than I am an artist. And, but it was sort of, it tested the market and the waters for me. And it kind of made me realize this is something that I can do,
yeah. And also, I think it probably took you on a huge learning curve when it comes to even technicalities of things, or how to all the how-tos.
How to print and how to, even how to do a Kickstarter or how to market this particular thing. And every day is a new day. I mean, for all entrepreneurs, every day is a new day. This has been this year in particular has had more learning in it for me than any year I can remember in my recent history. So that's good, right?
Yeah. And I saw that you were moving as well, and all this stuff is just happening, big shift. So can you tell me, like I kind of read the snippets on Instagram, but if you could maybe say for people who maybe don't know you, if there are any, but if there are any, yeah, then maybe you can tell us like how come, you did this crazy thing of kickstarting 2 decks at the same time. And how did that process happen? Because you already had quite a few cards done. Like, it was like you kept it so secret, nobody knew anything, and then it just came, boom. I mean, Lightseer was kind of, I think, did you post some cards, or did you just post it? Did you just post when you posted?
I had posted. So I did, I was kind of on the heels of the first deck. And actually, I was going to take, what year are we now? Things have happened so quickly.
2019.
2017, I was going to take the rest of that year off and just focus on a book that I want to do. I'm wanting to do this workbook. It's in my mind. It's been there for 5 years. And I was like, okay, I'm going to focus and finally do this. And Anthony had asked me to be a part of the Tarot Summer School. And so I taught a course on how to create your own tarot or oracle deck. And in that process, I was creating sort of a PDF workbook where people could sketch out some ideas for their deck. And sure enough, as I'm creating this, thinking this is like a 10-hour course. It's going to be about 3 weeks. I'll get it done. And then I'm going to focus the rest of the year on my book. As I'm creating the PDF, I started to just get all of these ideas for a new deck. So I started using my own how-to guide, sketching it, and I realized I had at least half of a deck of ideas there. So I knew that I could do the other half.
And so that was the Lightseer, yeah? Or
yes, that was Lightseer. That came, it was sort of this. And I was also going through a lot of, it was the first time that I had really been seen. When you put out a product, it's a little bit different. You kind of become more of a business than a person sometimes online. And it was the first time that I was dealing with people's, negative comments or, oh, I don't like it because of this. And so that for me was, the first time you deal with that online, it's a pretty big deal. Even if it's one comment, if you're sensitive or if you're an empath or, if you're anything like me, it kind of derailed me. And so I was dealing with all of that at that time. And I realized that the comments about the Oracle deck were more that, oh, it's so positive, and people were saying it's too positive or it's too motivational. And so I saw that shift happen in the community around that time, in 2017, where light and love were like seen as sort of fluffy, I want to say, or easy, or, and there was a lot of talk about spiritual bypassing. And so diving into shadow became kind of cool or more important. And I was really sitting with that, processing my feelings around that. And I realized I can learn as much from running towards what I love as I can from running away from shadow. And and I don't mean running away from fear is what I should have said, because we need the shadow side, right? We need both of them. We need them in equal measure. So I just kind of was sitting with that, and it was around in my head, and I thought, how can I do a deck that is equal parts, where it is allowing us to get the really good lessons, and it's calling us out on our shit and saying, take responsibility for your actions, but that's also motivational and positive. And so that was kind of the task that I felt like I wanted to take on. It felt like a really big task. I hope that I've done it justice, because because that's not an easy, as an artist, that's not always easy to find that fine line between what is forcing us to really look at a situation and then what is also motivating us out of it. So that was kind of where the Lightseers came from. And from there I spent, I think, about 4 months just working on that deck. I don't know what happened, Kasha. I don't know what happened. I got this massive burst of inspiration near the end of 2018, where all of a sudden I didn't want to do the Lightseers deck. All I wanted to do was I wanted to do this new deck, which was the Muse Tarot. And I called it the Muse Tarot because it was like whoosh, like, no, you are doing this, and this is it here, and that will work itself out, and now you just need to put all your energy into here. And as an entrepreneur, you don't do that. You have to finish what you start, or you never finish anything. I could live my life beginning projects and not finishing them. And so I struggled with it for about a month, where I said, I'm not going to really jump into it. I have a full-time employee who's been designing with me for, she's been with me for like 13 years. And through the shift of like a creative agency, and I kept her on when I'm doing this new thing. And so I started talking to her, you know, is it possible that we can do some sort of second deck? And what does, you know, how does that feel in your system to be promoting too? Because she helps me with a lot of the advertising pieces. And we decided we would just give it a go and do the crazy. And so that deck came with poetry and with, and I'm doing this with my hands because it's kind of the way I feel like my creativity is out here and it comes down. I don't feel like it's from within, which is maybe a strange thing for people who really see their creativity as being internal. But my creativity, I do feel like it's something that I tap into. And so it was a project that basically came in an instant and said, if you want it, it's now.
Wow.
So
it's so fascinating. And then you also decided to do the app for the Muse Tarot. Is it still happening? Yes, the app is going on.
So it's gone through a couple of changes, but it is still happening. And I've been working with, oh my gosh, I just got the first sound file from this amazing intuitive sound healer. You probably know her on Instagram. She's Harping Cards, Pauline Fazioli. You know Harping Cards?
Yeah, so I know her. Yeah, she's amazing.
She's a professional harpist through maybe she's the Italian. I want to say I don't know if what their orchestra is called, the Philharmonic. They have like their. She's an amazing professional harpist.
Yeah.
I don't want to say something that's not the right thing for her career. And so she has done the very first sound clip for the Empress for the Muse. And it is so beautiful because she just takes the card. She does an intuitive thing, but then she overlaid it because the actual card, and I do have that one here. I'm going to show this card here.
Wait a sec, I'm going to put you on this bigger. Oh, yeah.
So this card here has all of the planets coming out of her, kind of like she's birthing the cosmos. And so I cried when I heard this sound file because what Pauline did was she took sounds from Saturn, and it sounds like this kind of like, and she overlaid it on top of her harp music. It is just, it's mind-blowing because it sounds from Saturn that you're hearing, and it's this earthy sort of harp that sounds, you know, it sounds medieval almost, right? So it's this really, it's just so cool. Yeah, so I am, it's, and I am actively thinking about, and I haven't put this out to the community yet, but, you know, if anyone, I think that it would be amazing because Pauline said, I want to do this, you know, how can we work to, you know, like, let's do this thing. And I've had a few other people write poems and say this, you know, this is kind of inspired by. And so I'm thinking it may be really cool to have something that's, I don't know if that would live on an app or on a website, but like user-generated content or, I don't know.
Wow, but I have to tell you that when you just came up with this application poetry sound idea to the deck, I was just going, oh my God, this is so amazing. This was like, I was hooked. I thought, and of course, Chrisanne comes up with it because nobody else did it before. It's like, that's so cool. I thought this idea was amazing. And I was just watching, you know, because people are very kind of, I don't know, not people, but a lot of us like to play safe. And there's always this kind of sense of, oh, I don't know if this is cool. Like I did with the Sacred Creators, because we can be very risky and at times just play it safe. And because maybe I did it with the Sacred Creators before, then I thought like, Jesus, I just trust Chrisanne. I want to just like let her do something, and she probably will do something really amazing. So I'm excited about that, about this poetry and whatever samples you posted. I think it's brilliant. I'm just hoping now somebody will invent, you know, tarot cards with smell or.
Yes. Well, and that's it, right? Because tarot, you know, we have this like, it's been around forever, and it is such a beautiful thing in and of itself. We don't need anything else. But I also think we're in this digital age. Why don't we play with what's possible? And I think the apps that are out there are great. You just kind of click on them and they flip, and it gives you the convenience of not having to have a full deck. But the apps as they are right now, I don't think that they are using the technology to their fullest. So really it's, if we can pop in a headset or just hit play and get a whole soundscape or a poem, an audio, something that goes along with the cards, I think that just adds a whole other layer of uniqueness. And it won't be for everyone. I totally know that. And it's a total experiment for me too, because I've never experienced it. So
yeah, and nobody has done it before you either, so nobody knows. But I think it's engaging, more senses. So it's just a more complex experience altogether, even like logically thinking. But
and the way I even imagine using it, I mean, I don't think that it would ever replace my card practice, but I imagine pulling a card, maybe it's my card of the day, and then when I am out later that day, then that's maybe when I listen to the audio, and then that gives me, because I don't need to have my cards in front of me, and it just maybe it will give me more insight, because it's much more difficult for us to interpret cards for ourselves. So sometimes we need to do a little bit of extra digging to really get the message.
Yeah, totally. I was always thinking like, because I use tarot every day for myself, for work, but for myself, I don't think I skipped a day without daily draw or something. But this is how I learned cards and how I learned to personalize my meanings and kind of really get friendly with cards. And I always thought like, with the Muse application, like my morning draw, headphones on, just part of a meditation that I do, or, just like, and as you said, it doesn't have to be used every day, it doesn't have to be used every time you use Muse tarot deck, but it's just an amazing option. And I think it's just interesting because it's groundbreaking in some way, like nobody has done it. So I'm all for it.
Some people are not into it. Like some people see something that's innovative and they instantly feel like it's weird, and that's okay. It's not, like I said, it's not for everyone. But I hope that people will warm up to the idea of something different. And I really just want to test it.
yeah, exactly. Because I've read also a lot of comments there, the people wanted a guidebook rather, but I thought, no, please, we have guidebook for light, for light seers. Let's do something different. Like, I know that maybe for people who don't know tarot system very well, guidebook is always a safe option and in a way maybe necessary option, especially when the deck is different. And maybe here is a good idea to ask you to show us a few images because for people who maybe don't know about it, and I'm going to change the view as well so that you can guys see it, and you can maybe tell us a few words about this, Kristen. That would be lovely.
Yeah, so for the Muse, right, I have a few cards here that I had on my desk there. So you saw the Empress. They are, I mean, this is like a digital collage deck, so it is already unique because it's not the hand illustrated style. And I know that that's also not for everyone. I wanted something that was really bright and modern and conventional, but also something that would give really unique landscapes and horizons and kind of in a way would invite you into the different worlds of the Muse, because the deck itself, it came quickly, so inspired. I'm really hoping that people will also find it, will find that same energy in it when they're looking for inspiration. You have certain decks for certain things, and I do think that this is going to be a deck that will be wonderful for creative energy. That's my hope for it. And so there's the Fool. Have that one there, and this is the suits are a little bit different too, right? There's the Ace of Swords, and it's called the Ace of Voices. What I've done with the suits is I've taken the 4 elements and changed them into the way they actually translate sometimes in our lives. So we have, as an example, the voices are the swords. I have I'll show you the Muse deck. The Muses, as I'm babbling here. The Muses are the kings, so that is also another change. So it's one of these decks that there are a few things that are different. The top level of each suit is a king, rather than a king is a Muse, and it will be horizontal. So all of the Muses are horizontal, and they have this sort of there's sort of this mirror thing going on, and a little doorway inviting you in. So you can see down there, there's a little boat. And so this is the cups, or the emotions. I'm going to share my Muses with you.
So how come it became horizontal? Did you have like, did you just wanted to mix it up, or is it like, it looks lovely with the door because it's easier to do this like symmetry, yes? Or
yes, so I wanted, part of it was that I really wanted to do the symmetry, have the door, and have this kind of this feeling of it drawing you in. Mm-hmm. And you can do that this way, but it just all of a sudden, the horizontal, I really wanted it to pull you in. And for the muse, I wanted these kings, or the top level deck, to have all of the energy of the suit, and not necessarily, when we read with decks, and there will be readers that totally disagree with me on this, but I often feel like when we're into the court cards, we have this personality, and I will often look at the court cards and feel like this is the personality. Doesn't matter if it's upright or reversed. We all have good and bad days. And so sometimes that energy, I feel like with the court cards, I bring in that energy anyways into the reading, kind of like, this is what it is, but be careful about this. And so with the king cards, or the top level, I wanted to have that, it just makes it a little less likely to be, it's like when you read it this way, you are almost bringing in all of that energy of the suit, because you're going to pull the cards and it will come this way. So then you just turn it. Just kind of that reminder that there's that, it's just something that felt right for the muse, with all of the energy, and that's the top energy of the card. So I wanted it to embody all of the energy of that card, versus it has to be upright or has to be reversed, and have people be so in their heads about the court cards, because court cards are difficult. So it is definitely a little bit of a different, it was, with this deck, I have to say, it's the only creative project where I've ever allowed myself to just do whatever felt right. So
that's awesome. No, I like it. It's cool.
It's different. And so there is the voices, or the muse of swords, or the king of swords, with her walkway and her path. And I think I also have the king of pentacles, or the muse of pentacles, where she's got her earthy path leading us into this horizon up there. And so definitely the kings are different in this deck, and the suits are different. And so I'm just realizing that I'm going to have to put in, just working on my printer with this, an extra card in the deck that kind of says this, so that people can just have it there to say, just a reminder, this is what each of the suits are. Because I often find when I get decks like that, and I have a handful of decks where the suits have been changed, and because I'm so used to reading with the suits being the suits, I don't like to get confused. So I want to be able to give people that little cheat card that they can just
yeah, that's a really good idea, because I think that's like, obviously when you start using the deck, you will know it after 3 times you use it, you will remember probably the suits, but it's nice to have it rather than going, and especially that we probably won't have the guidebook for the muse, so it will be lovely to have just as a reminder, rather than going on the website and checking what did she mean now.
And so I actually am doing a guidebook because so many people wanted it, but it will be, and I wasn't sure, when people were really kind of like, oh, we need a guidebook, I thought, okay, let me figure out how to do this. It's going to be, I don't know the final size or anything of that just yet, because I'm going to give myself the time when the decks are being printed to finish up that guidebook, but I will make sure that I send it out to people in a PDF so that you can send it to a print-on-demand service. Like, it will be ready to go. So if people really want the printed version, I want to give that to people too.
Yeah, but it's lovely. I remember that you went for it, and I thought, wow, that's nice. You acknowledged you acknowledged the wishes of community. That's cool. Can we share the good news with everybody now?
Of course.
I mean, you've shared with the Kickstarter people. I don't know if you shared already on your Instagram.
No, I haven't. I only shared with Kickstarter because I feel like the Kickstarter community was the community that actually brought the deck to life. So I want to give them the information as I have it first, and then I will share it on Instagram afterwards. For me, it was really important that backers knew that that I'm thinking about them every step of the way. You have no idea. So the big news, the big news is that I was approached by Hay House late last year, and they want to do a version of the Lightseers Tarot. So it's going to be a smaller version. It's not going to be the full box and guidebook and everything else, but it will be a mass-produced version, which is a dream come true for me. I'm so happy. Thank you. I'm so happy that you're happy for me. I know in my video that I put out to the community, I was like, oh, I'm afraid that people are not going to be, you know, happy for me because some people don't like it when people go from indie to mass-produced. And of course, because a mass-produced deck, it's not the same quality, so it will cost less. But that would also never happen if, yeah, it wouldn't, yeah.
Sorry, I said like, Chris, and don't interrupt me, and now I interrupted you because I just wanted to say that, you know, it's always this thin line with the Kickstarters, because a lot of people, there were a few campaigns where suddenly, you know, people backed a deck, and then suddenly there's a mass market version which is cheaper and not so much different from the Kickstarter campaign. And I think that that might be annoying. So I think maybe also you felt a little bit of this pressure that like people won't get upset. But I think in this case, first of all, it's going to be a little different version. And also it's actually after the Kickstarter is going to be printed. So it doesn't really matter so much. Because I think that's the shitty way to deal with it if the creator, I mean, it's always, you know, sometimes it's hard to, not everything depends on the creators always. Yes. So sometimes, you know, I'm always for the creators to get deals and, you know, make money and earn money, and why not, you know, you guys not doing it for free, and also to be available in the cheaper price for more people, and it's lovely. But sometimes when the Kickstarters, people, you know, when we back it and you're just like, suddenly, why did I back it when I can get it in 2 weeks on Amazon, don't pay for shipping, you know, and it's nearly the same. And I think that's when it gets a bit like unfair in some way to the Kickstarters. Sure. But in your case, it's clear case, and I think it's awesome. And I think most of the community is really happy for you. And from what I saw, everybody is just like, bravo.
It was, I mean, Hay House, that is, you know, in the back of my mind, I had 2 publishers that I thought maybe someday my work will be at the level where I could pitch it to these 2 different publishers, and one of them was Hay House. And so it was sort of it was like an expedited dream come true for real when I got the email, because I didn't pitch to them, they came to me. And the opportunity, I mean, I thought, oh, is this real? You know, I'm like, they want my deck. It's so cool, and I'm just so thrilled about it. But at the same time, I had all of that, you know, that backer stuff going on. And sometimes, I mean, it was like they wanted it, and they wanted it like, let's do it now. And I actually said, no, we cannot do it in July. We can't do it in February. Like, it was me wanting to make sure that backers had their decks, and that they had at least half a year with their decks prior, you know, that they could, I get the whole, you know, what's happened in the past with some creators. So I was really wanting to keep the backers in mind the whole time, you know. And that was something that I think when I was doing my deal, I was negotiating my deal, we went back and forth on a lot of different things, because I thought, no, you know what, like, this is important. And, you know, if you, for me, the backers were, it's an interesting thing to be having purchased, because I've also backed decks where I was like, oh, so I've been on that same side where the exact same thing or even a better quality comes out for a cheaper price. And so it's an interest, it's such an all new, you know, new for me. I have no idea what's going to happen next. I am learning about what it's like to partner with a publisher. I mean, what an amazing opportunity to learn, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't have an agent. I don't know the contract. I was like looking at the contract. I haven't looked at a contract like this in years, you know? So,
yeah, I totally hear you, because I have actually a friend of mine. She's just written a book on dementia, and she's Polish, but she lives in Wales, and her book is going to be published by the US publishing house. So she also said, like, this, you know, the contracts, like, I don't know what I'm reading. So she had to get actually a lawyer who knows about this specific, it's like, you know, a niche. So yeah, it's full on, like, to take care of everything.
I should have. I didn't. I actually, like, I actually didn't get a lawyer. I had all of the intentions to do it, but I'm so busy with the decks. It's like I'm in the middle of so much production that I thought I'm going to sit down, and they were amazing because they sat down with me and explained what every single thing meant.
Oh,
She
that's
has no idea what she's doing. She doesn't even have an agent. Like, they were awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. That's really good. So let's just maybe speak a little bit about the business side as well, because you're one of not many. Maybe Ethany also is really good. Maybe Kelly and Maddox as well. She speaks about business quite a lot. But not too many of us really speak about business. And I have done with you the Manifest Being Seen course online, which was lovely. And I've learned and used still in my Instagram a lot of the tips that you shared with us there. And you're doing now the branding and marketing course as well. So if any of the viewers maybe are interested in this side of things, they can also just head over to your website probably and check all of it. And I'm going to link it all below so you can guys take a look. But where is this business interest comes? Like, how were you always interested or in this business side as well? Or was it just because you made this deck and you had to learn it, or how?
No. So my background, it's actually, I mentioned that I had this like love for divination from a child, and then I went to university, and then life happened. So that life happened in the middle. That was me becoming a graphic designer, and then I went and I studied marketing, and then I moved to Chile. And when I lived in Chile, I couldn't speak the language, so I started an online business. So that was in 2003. Yeah, 2003 or 2004. And so I started because out of necessity. I'm not the typical entrepreneur. I don't think I ever would have decided to start a business. I would have been really happy in a job doing creative. But because I was in a country where I couldn't speak the language, I could do the production, but I couldn't come up with any of the campaigns for people. I couldn't use my creativity to the fullest. I could speak the language, but I couldn't speak it well enough to write. Like I speak Spanish, but the written nuances for marketing and branding, and you need to be at a different level. And so I had a very typical conventional creative agency for 14 years. So, I did the business thing, and I did marketing and branding for other people. So my background is in that. My background is in branding other businesses and doing, we did their websites and their graphics and book design. And so all different types of design work, which I was really happy doing until I wasn't. And that's kind of when I started shifting and saying, I want to do something for myself. I don't want to be doing, you end up in a lot of ways as a creative artist doing projects that you don't necessarily resonate with to pay the rent or to pay the mortgage. And so I was in a place where I was doing some work that didn't feel aligned at all, making models more beautiful. I talk about that quite a bit in my courses, or, making products look better than they are, or selling people stuff they don't need. All of that stuff to me, it was weighing on me. So then I shifted my business and I started only working with specific types of clients. I started working with healers and in the health industry and in the green industry, things that felt good. But then I did that for a few years and realized that wasn't enough, that I actually just wanted to be doing more with, helping people to get in touch with themselves. And I wanted to do my own products. And I was doing branding consultations through all of that. And I realized that those one-on-one consultations, not online, these were in person, often ended up, I had clients that used to say that I was like a design therapist. And it's, because we'd be talking and I would be talking about their design, but then digging into, well, why do you really want that? Or why do you think you need that? Because you don't need that for business. So what's going on there? And it's really hard to dig into a business if it's got a solopreneur or one person or a two-person business without digging into what's going on with the person. What are their blocks? A lot of the blocks were mindset, or a lot of the blocks were fear or spirituality, or all different types of things that they needed to work out before they could have a successful business. And so it kind of has been this really beautiful and crazy path that just kind of I feel like it got woven for me.
Yeah, it's always it's happened. Yeah, it's like really nicely put, because sometimes you start something and you open one door and you're thinking it's this thing, but then this thing just by itself, it seems, organically transforms into something else. And so it's interesting also what you said about the clients, because I thought, like, I read tarot cards and astrology professionally, meaning this is my living as well. I'm making money from it. And, I thought, like, I want to be a tarot reader for tarot readers. I just kind of had always this, like, I just want to read cards for people who know cards. And I get a lot of tarot readers, or people who at least are interested in cards. And it's such a pleasure for me. This is like my niche, like tarot reader for tarot readers and astrologer for astrologers. Not only, of course, but it's interesting that I get a lot of it. So it's cool. And you never know where it's going to take, any of this. It's still like everything is evolving, and it weaves itself. Once you start.
Those little nudges, those little nudges, like wanting to be a tarot reader for a tarot reader, there may be other people that have a nudge like that, a different one, but whatever it is for them. And I just started working on how can I get people to voice that thing, because so many business owners wouldn't say it. They'd want it and they'd have it in their head, but they'd be embarrassed to say it, or they'd be embarrassed to say, I want to start this business, or embarrassed or afraid, or whatever their reason was. And so finding ways to get people to voice it is like step number one. And that has nothing to do with marketing and design, right? That has everything to do with art. So it's just really cool to follow the breadcrumb. I'm so glad that you did, because I like that, you had this tarot reader for tarot readers, and now that's what's happening. So,
it's really
do you market like that, or no? You don't
No, I don't really market like that, but it's somehow just happening. Maybe I don't even remember if I ever said it. Maybe this is the first time I said it. I don't know. I definitely kept saying it to my friends, but I don't know if I ever like voiced it out loud there. I don't know. Can't remember. But it's very, I don't know. I'm just kind of a bit fascinated with business side as well, because it's, maybe not for everybody, of course, because I think a lot of people in our tarot community just they use cards because they love cards, and it's like self-practice or for beauty or for inspiration. But there's quite a few as well who work with tarot. And here, have you ever read for people, or was it always for yourself?
No, I have, but not in the same way as, I've never done it full time. So I've done it for a long time, right? So my ability to read cards definitely is niched, I would say. I don't enjoy doing readings when people ask me about love. I mean, I just don't do those sorts of readings, but business readings, oh my goodness, I've been doing them for years. I've done Oracle, and I used to bring Oracle decks into my conventional client meetings if the client was a healer or an acupuncturist, and I thought, oh, you know what, they're going to be okay with this. And so
that helps. Tarot is so creative like this. So our time is kind of running short, but I was wondering if so I want to ask you about anything else. Let me just check if I forgot about something. It always takes, the conversation always flows. You can't really plan it 100%. And this is kind of lovely too. But with the Kickstarter decks, because that's just one question that I had for myself, are they going to be available just for the people who backed them on Kickstarter, or do you have more printed so people can pre-order and maybe get some of this version as well?
So the indie versions, there are still some left, because I needed to do more than the Kickstarter in order to get the pricing, but they won't be available for a long time, because as soon as Hay House takes it over, I can't sell them anymore. So there's kind of a pass off point. Like I'm not going to compete with them, and it doesn't make sense. And no, I've taken the light seers off of my, like, you don't see a button to pre-order the light seers right now with me, but it's still available. It's just, I don't want to put it out there without really explaining. I just have to fix my page and kind of say, it's also going to be available in 2020 through Hay House. And so I just don't want people to order it now that we have the dates, and now that I know, I don't want people to order it and not know that. So
okay.
There's a limited, gosh, that was a roundabout answer. there's a limited amount of the indie deck left. Yes.
Okay, because also I'm just like thinking now, because probably I'm recording this interview today, but I probably will post it in about 2 weeks time. So
Yes.
it's not going to change much within
It
2
won't.
weeks now.
No, no. I think my guess is that I will probably have Lightseer's decks until maybe May. That's what my guess is. So.
Well, you might think so, and then all of So the last question, which I always ask all of my guests, is because this is maybe as an introduction, this is why I started this series, because I love tarot and I love oracle and I just love cards. And I always, especially in Poland, like I just like breaking through this fear connected to tarot and associated with cards, and how it's mostly seen, not anymore so much, but it was and used to be seen like very connected to just divination and nothing else. So, you know, like I look at all these amazing people around who use tarot cards like you for business, let's say, and for different type of creative endeavors, and how many decks are coming to life right now. And I thought like this series of like how we can show that tarot can be used in so many various ways, and how this should be like, you know, inspirational for people who want to learn about tarot and who maybe never heard that, oh, you can actually use tarot not for divination but for, I don't know, writing a song, or, you know, making a poem happen, or whatever. So I thought I could ask all of you guys to maybe share one practical way for our audience. So maybe an exercise or a spread or a little something that maybe people can try at home, like a little whatever you, for example, like doing with cards. And if you could share with us, that would be lovely.
There's definitely a few ways. I think that I do, everyone reads in their own unique way, right? I tend to do quick pulls. So if I'm stuck on something that's creative, or even if there is a pull of the day or something that I am really trying to figure out, and I have my card in front of me and I can't figure it out. You know when that happens when you're trying to read for yourself and you get this, and this will happen. I mostly would jump into this if I have the same card like 2 or 3 days in a row. You know when that happens, like it's like the deck is like, you're getting this card again because you did not get the message right.
What are you saying to me?
Right? So when I'm in that kind of place, I will often use that card and I'll put it down. And sometimes this changes. I don't have any rules around this. Sometimes I'll just do a line. Sometimes I'll do a full square around the card. But I just will take the cards, shuffle them, and then just kind of lay out card by card by card by card. It's not like I'm doing a spread. It's not like any position means anything. It's just that I pull the first card and I look at it and I kind of come up with a word. Like, what does that word mean? Or what is the quickest message? Or, you know, it might be like, oh, you're waiting. And then I click the other, and then I pull the other card, and maybe it's waiting, you know, for, I don't know, I'm trying
Spring.
to think of an, yeah, and you're waiting for spring, or you're waiting for this communication from, and so I just kind of pull things, and I almost get like a sentence or 2 sentences out of maybe 20 cards. But they start with that one card that I had rattling around in my mind. So I already kind of know the question that I'm working with. I already sort of have I know the basic meaning of the card, but maybe it's just not hitting home as to exactly what it means for me. Then I will pull that, and I'll do the same for creativity, and that's always it's always a fun. It's fun. It's fast, but I often get more information that way because it's just very intuitive. Like I'm not stuck on the meanings of the cards. And then, you know, you do that quickly around the card, and all of a sudden you're paying attention to, well, there's my card, and let's say that is me and my situation. What am I looking at in this sentence? What am I, you know, it just becomes more of a picture, a full picture of, you know. And I know a lot of people do that sort of thing, but I like to do it where you're not looking at this is the past and this is the future. It's just more like stream of consciousness.
Yeah, it's like a conversation. And I love it that when you do it fast, you probably don't have time to, you know, overthinking. You just need that first click, what that means to you. And it's actually really fascinating because 2 guests that I hosted before you, they were all the exercises were take it slow and, you know, work with one card, and you're the first one to go like, I have a quick pulse.
I want all the answers. No.
And I want them now, and I want them delivered.
Yes. Well, but for me that works. And what you have to, I mean, this is great. It's almost better for a beginner reader, because in this format, you don't need to know what the card means. You just need to know what the one word is that you take from it. You know, like your subconscious is going to serve you up the word you need. And I could do the exact same thing and get a totally different sentence for a different question with a different mindset, of course, right? So
yeah, exactly. On a different day, in a different mood. Yeah.
So that seems to be, it's almost like I guess that's my block for like creative kind of like, I'm stuck on this card and I just can't get the meaning, and you know, or you know, I've had right now, and I'm thinking I need to do this right now because I have the 3 of Wands on my bed, and it's been there beside my bed because I've pulled it so often lately, and it's like, yeah, I know I'm waiting, and I know, you know, but it's yeah.
There's also, if I can add it to your quick pulse, I'm going to just call it quick pulse now. And there is also, you know, when you stuck on the card, I learned it somewhere here in Poland from somebody. It's a cool way too. So you can do the quick pulse like you said, but also you can take this card as well, put it down, and you can pull a card for every symbol on the card. So like you could pull a card for one wand, for the other one, for the third one, for the person, for the sea, for the ship, for the something, you know, like setting sun, rising sun. And it also gives, it works similarly to what you're doing with the quick pulse, but maybe a little bit more intellectual here than instinctive, but it's another way to maybe, you know, dig deeper. So it's a fun way to add as well. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being a host and me being a guest. Absolutely. And especially during these busy times for you, I was like really happy when you said yes, because I thought, oh, you're probably like doing this Kickstarters now. You'll be like, please, Kasia, not now.
No, well, I love you, and I love what you share, and I love what you're up to, and I love that you're doing this series. And so for so many reasons, I was like, I absolutely must say yes. And plus, we've never had we've talked a lot, but never had a chance to sit and chat like this. So,
yes, yeah. That's what I was like, oh my God, I feel like I know you because, you know, I've been doing the course with you, and we had this live chats, but we never really kind of chatted. So I always saw you talking, and I'm like, yeah, I know Kristen.
I felt the same. So it's really nice to just sit down and have this sort of more, you know, just more of a conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for, yes, as I said, sharing your time with us, and I'm hoping that it's going to be inspirational for people. Thank you for sharing the quick pulse. I'm going to just try it on right now. And yeah, we'll see you around in the community. We always around, we always see you. I'm always interested. What's the new card reveal? What's happening? So if you guys don't know, also Kristen and Pixiecurio, I'm going to link it all below, all the information. She has a wonderful IG as well feed with when she posts all these beautiful cards and reveals the new images nearly every day now. So that's awesome. So I'm fingers crossed for all of this to go, you know, according to plan. Don't stress out about the timeline so much. It's all good. 1 or 2 months this way or the other, it doesn't really matter. And we do want, you know, the bold colors on Lightseer's deck. Why not? So thank you, lovely, so much. And maybe, you know, we do it another time. Who knows when and how, but it was lovely to meet you and meet you in person. Thank you for everything you do in the community, for your bright, shining light. I really enjoy it. And for breaking with the convention. Love it.
Aww, thank you so much.
So thank you very much. Stay for 1 sec. I'm just going to pause it, say bye to everybody, and then